This is Jack. Jack wants a copy of a book. He wants a copy of a book written by Galileo. Galileo was an interesting character in history. About 500 years ago, he was imprisoned by the Catholic Church in his own house, and he was told he could not leave his house or spread his propaganda to anyone else, otherwise he would be killed. Galileo wrote a book about the moons of Jupiter. There's Jupiter. And Jupiter has a bunch of moons, so there's 4 really big ones. And what Galileo showed was that these moons over time moved around Jupiter. And that was really bad for the Catholic Church at the time, or at least they thought it was really bad for them, because they figured that if people knew that Jupiter was the center of its own little system, they would think that the Earth was not the center of Jupiter's system, and then maybe the Earth was not the center of any system other than the Earth-Moon system, and the Catholic Church may start to lose power. And Galileo wrote this book. He had his own manuscript, and then he had it published as well, but his own manuscript, his original, a beautiful bound copy, tons and tons of little notes and margins on the side. Tons of good stuff in this book. And Galileo's book is something that Jack wants. Now Jack is able to get Galileo's book if he wants, or he's at least able to get access to it, because Galileo's book is in the most valuable collection of books on the planet. It's a collection of books found in the Vatican. And Jack is able to go and get it. He's able to go to the Vatican and ask for the book. And Jack does that. He goes to the Vatican. And so here's Jack. And here's the desk, the circulation desk. And here's a guy with his hands on the desk waiting very patiently for Jack to ask his questions. And Jack says, "Can I have the book?" And the man behind the counter says, "No." And Jack says, well, I really want it. And the man behind the counter says, "You can't take it with you." And the reason Jack can't take the book with him, he can't leave the Vatican and go and do his research with that book, is because it's the only copy in existence, or maybe one of maybe 2 or 3 copies in existence. It's very valuable. It's very valuable not because it has anything in it that's secretive or that's really exciting or new or interesting, because this book exists, it's been published, people can read it whenever they want, but it's valuable because it's the only one that has Galileo's notes in the margin. And so this gentleman behind the counter says, "No, listen, Jack, I'm sorry, you can't have it." And so Jack says, "Okay, well, you know what I'll do? Hey, listen, can I take a picture of it?" And the guy behind the counter says no. And the reason Jack cannot take a picture of the book is because the Vatican Library, where Galileo's book is held, is, low light conditions. Light that's not going to damage the pages. The pages are really old. And if he takes a picture, he needs to use flash to get a good image. And that's going to start to, if enough people take pictures of it, it's going to start to ruin the pages. So Jack says, "Okay, listen, can I make a photocopy of it?" And the man behind the counter says no. And he can't make a photocopy for the same reason that he can't take a picture. So Jack thinks to himself, well, what can I do? And he asks that, what can I do? And the man behind the counter says, you can take it to the desk and you can copy out what you want. And Jack gets that information from this gentleman behind the desk. He's a little upset about it, but he says, fine. And so he goes and he takes Galileo's book to a little desk and he copies out. So He opens up Galileo's book. With all of its pages, all of its lines. Very, very interesting set of information. And he finds the pages that he wants, and he takes those pages and he puts them into his own writing. He gets his own sheet of paper and he writes out all of Galileo's information. Now, he's able to do this even though Galileo's book is written in Italian. Jack doesn't speak Italian, but Jack is able to do it. He's still able to take all of the information on Galileo's page and put it on his own paper in Italian. And the reason he's able to do that, even though he doesn't speak Italian, is because Italian and English, which Jack does speak, use the same alphabet. Galileo's G's maybe are very extravagant, big G's. Galileo, Galilei, big. And Jack's G's are, they're small and they're simple, but it's still a G. It would be a little bit more complicated if Galileo's book, or the book that he needed, was written with characters from a very different style of language or style of writing, like Korean or Japanese, or if they were written in Cyrillic, or if they were written with the Greek alphabet. It would be more complicated. Luckily for Jack, he's able to take those letters and put them into his own paper. But there's a problem. His page is in Italian, and he does not want his page to be in Italian. That's bad. So Jack thanks the man behind the desk, takes his sheet or 2 or 3 of paper, however many sheets he has. He takes them and he leaves. And he walks down the street and he goes to find himself a guy who can, or a girl, who can take his information and turn it into the information that he needs. So Jack is going to ask this person, can you translate it for me? All right, we're going to try that again. Sorry about that. Can you translate it for me? And the person behind the desk is going to say yes. However, Jack, I'm sorry, it's going to cost you some money. And Jack says, and he pays. And he pays the translator, and the translator produces for Jack, from Jack's handwritten Italian notes, he produces for Jack a beautiful collection of, I'm going to use this, a beautiful collection of English notes. Now, Jack has everything he needs. He took information from Galileo's book, which wasn't really secretive, but it was still important to him. He was using it to do some research. And he took it and he used the very delicate, very important document. He used it to get a copy of what was written on the pages that he wanted. And then he had to take his document, which was in a different language, to somebody who was willing to translate it for him. And that person did the translation. And now Jack has something that he absolutely is able to use and is very, very happy with. He had to pay a little bit of money for it. It took him a bit of time to get there, but this is what he wants. You are in a situation in your cell where DNA is an incredibly important molecule. It is valuable. There are trillions, even quadrillions of copies of your DNA code, one for every cell in your body. So you have lots of it. But within a certain cell, within a specific cell, that one strand of DNA is the only strand of DNA that that cell has. And that strand of DNA needs to be protected. It needs to be kept secure. But you want the information in there. Just like Jack wanted the information in Galileo's book, you want the information held within your DNA strand. So what your body does, and what organisms do all over the planet, is they use this information in the DNA, they sneak into the nucleus of a cell, and they take that information in DNA and they turn that information into the same message in RNA. We went from Italian to Italian. One style of letter to a different style of letter, but still the same alphabet and still the same writing. We go from one style of letter to another style of letter, but still the same alphabet, still the same writing, still the same information. RNA is not really useful for us in and of itself. It does some things, but it doesn't do the bulk. It doesn't do the majority of things that cells need to do. The majority of work done by cells is done by protein. And RNA and protein are a totally different language. Just like Jack had to take his Italian to a translator and pay a translator to turn his Italian into English so that Jack could use it and find some actual use in the information, you have to do the same. You have to take your information from your DNA, which is now coded into RNA. You have to take that code and turn it into a code that's useful. And that useful code for us is protein. These processes have names, and we're going to look at them in a bit more detail. This process here, going from DNA to RNA, is called transcription. You may be seeing a word that's related to this, the word scribe. If you're writing a test or a final exam or the EQAO test, and you broke your hand and you can't write with that hand, well, the school and the ministry will offer you what's called a scribe. You'll say things to them and they will write down what you've said. That's where this word transcription comes from. We're taking the information in one thing and writing it down into a different style of language. Taking the information found in Galileo's book and writing it out into your loose leaf. Still the same information, you're just taking it from one place and copying it to another. This next step, as you can kind of figure out from here, has a name as well, and it is called translation. This is not called translation because the language is the same. This is called translation because the language is different. The language of RNA is the bases A, C, G, and U, which are very close to the language of DNA, which is A, C, G, and T. The language of protein, though, is the language of amino acids. And these don't have a straight connection. So something has to be done to go from the information in RNA to the information in protein. In this process, we don't turn DNA into RNA, and we don't turn RNA into protein. We take the information in DNA to make RNA, we take the information in RNA to make protein. Just like you didn't turn Galileo's book into your own pages, you just took that information and wrote out your own. The translator took your writing and wrote his own or her own version in English. So keep that in mind as we go. We're making new molecules each time. This process here, this DNA to RNA to protein, this is called the central dogma. It's funny that this word pops up again. Dogma is sort of like a religious belief, a key religious belief. And we're talking about Galileo, and Galileo had issues with the church where they locked him up and basically said, you can't spread that. This information, this idea in biology is one of the key ideas in biology, that the sequence of proteins you have that determine how your cells function comes from your DNA code, and we get a DNA to RNA to protein process, and that gives us all of the information we need to produce the machinery of life. Next few videos we're going to look at each of these processes in detail, and we're going to also look at RNA back into a different version of RNA as well. I'm going to try and make 3 different videos to get that out for you guys by midweek this week. And that's it for now. Try some of the readings, try some of the activities.